Hey, it's your pal Mike Shea from SlyFlourish.com and Twitter.com/SlyFlourish, here with another episode of Sly Flourish's Lazy DM Prep. This is a weekly show recorded on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Twitch and rebroadcast on YouTube, so you can watch previous episodes there if you like. In this show, I go through steps from Return of the Lazy Dungeon Master while preparing for my Ghost of Saltmarsh game. My regular D&D game, in this case, I am running Ghost of Saltmarsh. But I go through this for all of the campaigns that I run. My game is today at noon on Sundays, and we are about halfway through Ghosts of Saltmarsh. We are right at the tail end of Isle of the Abbey. Hey, He's Not Your Problem is here, and my mom is here. Hi, Mom! Let's see. So I have had, last week I talked about the D&D Essentials kit right here, and the adventure in there, Dragon of Icespire Peak, and I talked about that because I wasn't having a Sunday D&D game last week, so I thought I'd talk about that instead. But now we are returning to Ghost of Saltmarsh. So Isle of the Abbey, and I talked about this in the last show. Isle of the Abbey is one of the one-shot D&D adventures in this book. It can be, however, reskinned to tie in with the storyline. If you have a storyline for the rest of this campaign, you can tie the storyline. You can tie this into the storyline pretty easily by reskinning a few elements. However, there's some other, in my opinion, bigger issues with this adventure. One is that the island itself is relatively boring. So you want to add some interesting thing to the island. I'd recommend some kind of fantastic location in between the beach. The beach is very cool. The starting beach where you get attacked by, oceans of skeletons is really a lot of fun. And then I recommend some kind of interesting monument to the priests. So in my case, I reskinned them as priests of the chained god. I think they call them the Elder Elemental Eye. And it would have been interesting to have like a giant symbol of the Elder Elemental Eye, or maybe a massive monolith, or some kind of sacrificial altar, or a huge monument, or some kind of interesting thing for the characters to explore, and then put some interesting, some kind of interesting situation there. Either maybe there's some cultists doing a ritual there, maybe there's an elemental or a couple of elementals that are wandering around the place. Maybe there's a bunch of little secrets and clues that are hidden away among that. Maybe there's maybe that is where the characters encounter one of the pirates who managed to survive on the island for a while. And then you get down into the dungeon itself, and I mentioned that again there are two problems with this dungeon as well. The first is that the design of the dungeon just doesn't lend itself to a very interesting situation, and it's mostly because the whole first part of the dungeon. Let's open this up in a new window. The whole first part of this dungeon, you go right down the stairs, and then there's 8 rooms directly connected to the main room you go into. So you walk in there, you're going to have some kind of deal with the guys in here. Maybe it's a fight, maybe it's a conversation. But in any case, it's very unlikely that everybody else in every one of these other rooms are not going to know that something is going on. So that's just, it's not a particularly, given that there's only one way in, you walk right into a room full of people, and that is, there's one room away for a bunch of other people. It just doesn't make for a very interesting situation. So, and some people then on last week's show recommended going to Dyson Logos. Dyson is actually the artist who made this map. He was commissioned for all the maps for, I think, the last big pile of hardback adventures for Wizards of the Coast. And he also has a huge archive of more than 700 maps that you can go through and pick another map that has a better design. He's a very good designer. On top of being a fantastic artist for these maps, he's just a great designer of dungeons. And you can go through and pick any number of dungeons to replace this one. So that is, another issue with this adventure. And then the third is they have this place called the Winding Way. And the Winding Way is let's see, shrink it down. There we go. The Winding Way is this whole lower section of the dungeon. And the Winding Way is a pure death trap dungeon. There are crossbow traps and pit traps and illusionary traps and all kinds of traps to go through. All these like A, B, C's, and D's that you see here, those are all traps that you have to get through. And then they're connected by a series of rooms. 11, 12, 13, and 14 are sort of 4 big rooms. And a couple problems that you have is that getting that many traps is really not. It's so many downward beats in a row. Like if you imagine, you go from room 11 and you make a left turn and you get hit by B, D, C, B, A, C before you get to room 12, right? Like that's 6 traps on the way, and they're the same, right? Like you're gonna get hit by 2 B's and 2 C's and a D and an A. And so then the other one is if you have a character who has a passive perception of 16 or higher, they're going to see them all. So what's the point? So when I ran it the first time, I kind of ran them through a bunch of traps. And it wasn't a great game. People weren't really that interested in it. And the second time I ran it, I had a much easier time because I hand waved a lot of it. And I made sure that the characters had a much easier time of seeing the traps and then sort of getting around them. So I described it that the traps were not. How did I do it? They saw them and they knew that the traps weren't about them. They knew that the traps were mainly there to stop tomb robbers from going through the place and not necessarily traps that you would have to worry about as seasoned adventurers. But they knew they were there. So I described them as part of the narrative and then described that they got past them. And I still put big traps on the doors. So I still had, these bigger rooms that they had to get into, and there were traps on the doors that they had to deal with, and those were still nasty. So they still dealt with traps. They will remember this as a death trap dungeon, even though they didn't have to go through all these traps. And then I changed the rooms a lot. So I had one room with a vampire statue. That was okay. I had the room with the crystal minotaur, I think. And that was okay. And they basically got 2 keys to a 3rd chamber. Then my thing was they went from one room. So they had an entry hall. That was as area 11 here. Then they went to one chamber with a vampire statue. They beat it and they got a key there. And then they beat the crystalline minotaur, and they got a key there. And I had to change these a lot because I only had three players, so I had to lower the difficulty a bit. Then they had 2 keys, and then I made a final chamber, which requires both keys to get in. And that was where we ended the session. So we are beginning the session today with their entry into the other session, or into the final chambers of the Winding Way. So I really hand-waved a lot of the layout of this dungeon. I certainly hand-waved a lot of the traps, and I also changed up all of the monsters. And my big question at the end of the session last week, or at the end of the show or the 2 weeks back, was like, if you have to change out your whole map and all of your encounters, you don't really have a lot left of the actual adventure. Which, to me, this is the weakest so far. I haven't run there's 3 to go, I think. And those look pretty cool. So I have a feeling this is the weakest adventure of the bunch. And certainly it's got some editing problems where there's things in texts that don't match up with their flavor text and stuff like that. So it was definitely not real well put together. It is not one of the best. Yeah, it's the worst dungeon in this place. It's the worst adventure in this place. But the theme is pretty good. The idea that there's an island and it's got these reclusive clerics, and then in my story, the reclusive clerics are actually clerics of the Elder Elemental Eye. Those work really well. So I think that you can still use the seed, but in my opinion, it's probably worth tossing out the dungeon, tossing out the map, adding some new locations, and adding your own encounters. In which case, you're pretty much building your own little adventure here. So if you wanted to skip this one and instead put in any other little homebrew adventure that kind of moves the story along, one should feel free to, because I don't think you're missing much. But I'm still running these final 2 rooms. So this morning I put together. Let's see. I should have downloaded these already, but I forgot to. Let's see. I built a couple of nice rooms in Dwarven Forge. Why is that? Let's see. Sorry. Problems. So here was the entry hall. And I haven't decided what to do with this yet. Is it showing up on camera? It is. I haven't decided what to do with all this yet. I was just sort of free building a Dwarven Forge room. And then I added a fire pit, and then I added green glowy things, and then I added visible crossbow traps. So, today we'll discuss what exactly that is. And then This is the final chamber in the vault, which I really wanted to make pretty cool. So I have 3 sarcophagi. I have a pool in the center and cool little altars and things like that. I don't think I'm going to do too much crazy trap stuff, even though there's gemstones and I-beams and all kinds of weird stuff I could have happen in this room. I think I'm going to stick to some pretty mundane. Here's a kitty. Yeah. So we're going to figure that out. But scene 1 is definitely going to be, entering this. I think this is a crematorium. I have a feeling, the way I'm sort of running this is that this center thing is a crematorium where they burn the bodies of former priests of the Elder Elemental Eye. And there's these, I don't know what the green glowy things I think are spectral orbs that actually have specters that flow out of them. And then sort of, hiding in one of the shadows is a Bodak who's going to cause them some problems. Maybe rises out of the ashes. Maybe this Bodak sort of crawls out of the ashes of this burning pyre. And then if you screw at the door without burning a piece of somebody, the crossbows will fire these, hideously poisoned crossbow bolts at you. I think that's what I'm thinking about for that room. So we'll toy with that. Let's see. I haven't been paying attention to chat. Tilda DeWilda is here. Hello and welcome. Glad you could make the stream. He's not your problem. Says Final Enemy, the Styes, and Tomarot's Fate all look well put together. Yeah, I'm running Final Enemy now, and it's fine. I haven't had any of the problems that I've been having with this other one. Evil John says, good morning back. He's not your problem. It's pretty much a standalone adventure with minimal ties to anything else. They could have used the page count to build out more specifics for the Saltmarsh region. Yeah, they could have. Or I don't know if I don't know. Maybe they were having trouble finding a dungeon that was specific to that level range. Hard to say exactly how that works out. Evil John says it looks great. I just remember I was supposed to watch Twitch. Yay! Yes, you should be watching Twitch. And Elvin King, Wizard King says hello. And the big TM says hello. So so I'm putting them. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about this. Why don't we pull up our notes here? This is our session notes for today, part 4. So let's start with our characters. And I think unlike the week before last when I had hardly any, I had 3 of my 6 players. I think today I might have them all. I'm not sure. I might be down 1, but I'm not sure. So we're gonna find out. So I have Mac, the Goliath Grave Cleric, smuggler from the jungles of the Monmerg, worshipper of Weejoss. I think because he's sort of a grave cleric, I think like he's gonna know this. It'd be really good that he can see a lot of what's going on in this. I think there'd be a lot of fun for Jerry to have and Mac to have a strong connection to this crematorium and the pyre and he understands what they're doing here. I think it'd be cool. We have Bleth, a human paladin of Procan. Ink Black Whale ate her parents, threw herself in the drop of Skylar Cotter. She became Emo Bleth after being filled with some demon blood. And she can speak now to the Black Death. She can hear it in her mind. We have Skylar, Aarakocra Storm Cleric. Saved everybody, flew around, has a cloak of protection. Had his head ripped off by a Varghul, but got better. We have Corvel, a human fighter. Fisher got knocked in the head, fights with, he believes in the god Zygag, and he and Dave both served Ida Oland, and he is beginning building a magic ore. We have Dave, is a Triton monk and fisher, saved Corvel during a fishing expedition in which Corvel was nearly killed, so Dave and Corvel are friends. And brought Corvel to Welgar Brine Hands. It has a sister, Sulin Whitestorm, who became a warlock of the Chain God and is recovering. Her mind was kind of brought back from the brink by her brother last time they were in Saltmarsh. And we have Thurvin, a half sea elf storm sorcerer, served in the same pirate ship as Max, saved Max's life. He's pretty lawful good. Like, he does not suffer fools. Hates Zolek. So those are the characters that we've got. Always good to kind of put them in mind. So our strong start, I think I'm going to stick them right in that first chamber that you can see in the lower right. And we'll call it the pyre. And I think they're going to get... Cats are chasing each other. I think they're going to get attacked by both specters and a Bodak. I think the Bodak will probably wait and see how the specters do. I'm probably going to do 1 specter per character, probably 4 specters, and the Bodak will attack later. I don't know. So I know if you screw with the door, those crossbows shoot. And I think you have to burn a piece of flesh, right? I think that's cool. The Bodak is like an ash Bodak. I think he lurks within the pyre. Would be pretty great. The pyre does a bunch of fire. He's immune. He's probably immune to fire. He's a pyre to Bodak. The Bodak's death gaze is no joke. I know it. I know it, and I like it. What else? So what should those green orbs do? I just put them in because they look cool. But what could we have the green orbs do? I guess like if you smash the orbs, maybe the specters are tied to the orbs. So if you smash the orbs, you can disrupt the specters. Might be a good way to get rid of you know, maybe I don't know. Like it'd be pretty bad if it like granted disadvantage to everybody. Like a living spell projection. Emit necrotic energy in an area of effect. Yeah, I don't... Oh, how about they don't allow any healing? No healing in the area, right? No healing while the orbs are up. So as long as those spectral orbs are up, you know, then their specters attack. They cannot heal while they're in it. I think that could be a good one. So, and then there's doors. So this is a pretty awful room, right? So what, an interesting thing, Snark Knight says, is the strong start where you typically put your notes on the room? No, I would typically put this under a fantastic location. I'm just sticking it here because it is the strong start. Like they're going to be in this room to begin with. So I'm just sticking it here and, you know, jotting my notes in here. But typically, you know, I would have I would list this out as a fantastic location with all of these different attributes tied to it. But just because it's a strong start, I'm sticking it here. Let's see. What else do I need? So I think that's pretty strong. The orbs are supplying the specters with necrotic energy to exist. Yeah, I think if you smash as you smash those things, not only does it get rid of the you know, that you're healing, you can get your healing back, but also it probably, you know, destroys specters. I'll probably improvise some of this as I go. You know, I don't think I will worry too much about it right now, and I can kind of play with some of the ideas about what it does. Maybe it destroys the specters, maybe it does a bunch of damage to specters, maybe it doesn't do anything to specters. And I think that while those are up, you can't turn. I mean, I hate to get rid of turning, but man, it's so disruptive. You know, like a good turn can get rid of all the undead in one blast. So we'll see. Maybe the orbs can find the specters to follow the will of whoever tethered in the room. Yeah, and by the way, these specters are all they're all former priests. And I have 4 different kinds of little spectral minis to kind of represent these 4 different types. I think that will be cool. So that's our scene 1. Then so when we look at our scenes, we have we have the pyre. We have the door, which just really requires the 2 keys. That's the second door. So let me see if I can pop back over to the think. So you can see it at the bottom there. I don't think that they're not exactly liches. maybe a little similar, but liches are really a different beast. But I think that like the specters sort of give their lives over to become these mad specters. They're not nearly as strong as liches are, and I don't think they have any of the powers that they had in the priest. But I think that the mummies might. I'm gonna put some mummies in here, and I think I might even put in the mummy lord in the next room. We'll have to see. So we have the door. The door just requires 2 keys, and they have the keys already. And then we have the pool. And to stay true to form, since I was called out for putting locations in the wrong spot, we'll fill in these fantastic locations here. So it looks like I already had some, but let's get rid of them. So we have the pyre, and we will just we'll do a copy and paste this in there just so I have it in the right spot. We have the pool. I'm not going to worry about the door because really they just open it with a key. And then the pool, there is a pool that, that inflicts figure of death. So one who touches the pool eats a finger of death, right? And it may very well kill them. There's a sword. The sword in the pool is the sword I already have down in treasure. I saved this from last week. It's called Lightspire. Lightspire is a sunblade of Orthania Dawn Valley, who was a hero of St. Cuthbert, who fought back the Chain God centuries ago. But it's now being inverted and used to spread necrotic energy across the isle. So the pool actually inverts positive energy. The pool inverts positive energy into negative. So if they want to save the island, hello kitty. If they want to save the island and get rid of the necrotic energy, they have to get it out. But none of your tricks are going to work. So you can't poke it with a stick. You can't grip it with a big magic gripper. You can't use Mage Hand. None of it seems to work. It cannot be. The pool won't allow inorganic matter to go through. It has to be organic, and then it eats its life and kills whatever goes through. There are 3 sarcophagi in here, so this is more in the monsters, right? I'm kind of jumping all over, but this is, sometimes this is how it works. That includes 2 mummies and a mummy lord. The mummy lord might be too hard. Let's take a quick look at the mummy lord. Let's see. Don't need that. I need this. Because mummy lords have a crazy high challenge rating. They're CR 15, but they're really not that. They're not that hard. But I think they might be harder than my 6th level characters. I like most of this. I think it's mostly the spells, and I will probably just hold back on some of their spells. How bad is the Dreadful Glare? Yeah, that's fine. I think so. The Mummy Lord is definitely underpowered for its challenge rating. I don't know exactly what its challenge rating should be, but I think 15 is too high. I don't know exactly what it does. I think its attack is really awful, right? It does Rotting Fist. Makes 1 attack with Rotting Fist, but it can make a Rotting Fist attack. Yeah. It can do legendary Rotting Fist attacks. And the Rotting Fist attack does 14 bludgeoning plus 21 necrotic. Why don't vampires do that? How come vampires don't hit for 21 necrotic? They should. Here's a mental note. You really want to make vampires scary? Give them a 21, give them 66 necrotic damage on a life drain and make them so they can't recover the life. That's one to grow on. I think I'm going to use this stat block anyway, and I'll just hold back a little bit on some of this stuff. I don't think it's going to hit for 21. Maybe it'll, I probably will take away some of the legendary actions, but we'll see. Or give it, fewer legendary actions. I'm not sure how that's going to go. But I think when he hits for, so what is that total? That's like 14 plus 21, 31, 35 points of damage a hit, right? And he could do up to 4 hits. That's 100. That's where his challenge rating comes out, is how many attacks he gets. But 97 hit points is not a lot of hit points for a creature that, size. So vampires should be scarier. Yes, I'm glad we all agree. So I'll probably use the Mummy Lord. 2 mummies and a Mummy Lord in the pool. And somebody's got to die. Somebody's got to reach in there and eat a finger of death in order to get the blade out. So we'll see. We'll see what they pick up and how that works out. And that's pretty much, once they've pulled the blade out, all of the necrotic energy sort of flows across. I think all of the undead things sort of disappear. Let's see. MKW515 says, do you usually change legendary actions before changing raw numbers? Do you usually have to change raw numbers? I play, you got to remember that the numbers that are there are flexible. So you don't have to, pick it up too much. You can increase and reduce depending on what's going on. I don't like to take really high CR monsters and make them lower level in general, mostly because of the story. But the Mummy Lord fits this story. So I think it'll be, and I think if I have 5 to 6 players, I think it'll be easier to deal with. Does someone's hand turn into bone or undead reaching in the sword? I did have somebody in my other group. I had somebody who died when they went in, and they were resurrected very quickly, but they had actually lived for something like 6 years in purgatory during that time. So they have this whole period of time where they thought they were dead and they thought they'd never be returned, and then all of a sudden they came back. It's not Mummy Lord. It's a Mummy Mare. He's Mummy Lord. It's, the Mummy Lord fits like that. This is so what's the story of the Mummy Lord? The Mummy Lord is the high priest of this church, right? So this is the most powerful creature that guards the artifact, guards the thing and makes sure that this goes on. So, this is it's not the highest priest of the Elder Elemental Eye, but it's the highest high priest of this church of the Elder Elemental Eye. So it makes sense to have a Mummy Lord plus a pair of mummies. And I think the mummies will just be like blade slashing mummies. It won't be too crazy. And then they return. So after that, they return back to Saltmarsh, right? So we have the scene, the pool, and return. And we have to kind of figure out what's been going on there. We'll probably do that by digging into secrets and clues. Zephyr the Black Jewel, Priestess of the Elder Elemental Eye, Tina Turner from Thunderdome. I don't remember who that was supposed to be. I don't remember if I brought that character in. I guess I did when they fought. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember some of these NPCs. I got a ton of NPCs. It's crazy. In fact, I've got an upcoming article about how to keep track of NPCs, because like in this case, it's just getting ridiculous, right? I mean, I guess it's good to have them all here, and I can always just scan and search and find them all. But boy, I need a better system for tracking NPCs. And there's too many of them here. I really should go through and just get rid of some, and I'll have to, yeah. I don't need other NPCs because I've got them all. But all these are pretty important. They all matter. Like you can't really get rid of these. All of these NPCs have some part to play and are playing parts currently, and they just keep going and going and going. Kira Shadowbreaker, Lennox, Raisin, Dreadwood. I don't know who that's supposed to be. Kiara Shadowbreaker. I added her, but I don't remember her. The big TM says I use OneNote. A lot of people do. Yeah, so I did a big poll, and I'm actually going to do some analysis on the poll and see what kind of what tools people use for it. I have a feeling it's the same tools they use to track everything. OneNote is very, very popular. People love OneNote for it. And I tried using OneNote a little bit, but there was little quirky bits, and I ended up just saying, you know what, text files are fine. So I kind of have my big text files. And now what I do is I just copy and paste it from game to game. Text is cheap. you know, and it doesn't use up space, so it doesn't really matter that I'm copying and pasting in my game notes each time. And it doesn't make the whole thing too unwieldy. So I think having like my little text set of notes here, it means I can pull them up on my phone. It means I can use them as notes on YouTube. It means that I can, you know, obviously work with them here on this computer and on my computer upstairs. They're saved everywhere. So they serve the same purpose. I think OneNote would be nice to kind of track images, you know, drop in digital, you know, some binary objects that you want to throw in there. I think would be cool. I don't know if you can even throw music in there. You can probably throw anything in there. And yeah, and the nice thing about OneNote is it can use on every device. I do have this thing where like you can't ever pull your stuff out of OneNote, but I don't know that matters too much. I mean, how many of us are actually going to care? But it's kind of nice. Like, you know, people look at their notes from a game 30 years ago, so I don't know why they wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, Markdown is. I'm kind of using Markdown, but not really, because one problem is that YouTube doesn't let Markdown notes. It doesn't handle Markdown well. So because I put these in YouTube, I keep them sort of out of Markdown, but I could just as easily use Markdown. So what secrets and clues do we have? One secret and clue is that the dead the dead priests of the Elder Elemental Eye protect the Winding Way and the artifact it contains. A dread pool holds the sword. What's it called? Lightspire. It's the Lightspire. The pool inverts. A dread pool holds the lightsaber, a sunblade. The pool, we're going to make this 2 secrets and cheat. The pool inverts its radiance and turns it into waves of necrotic energy that flow across the land. The high priest of the temple. He needs a cool name. Let's go look up a cool name. Links. Why does this not? Names. Boyle Crowhammer. Bird. Weinberg. Jaden. Just let my eyes sort of scan for a name. Memphis Cloudsteel. That's not bad. Amida Darkcloak. Raven Crowhammer. We're going to go with Amida Blackcloak. Has long since died, and now is the primary. And now is the primary guardian of the temple. The Elder Elemental Eye is the more refined theology. Both worship the same being. I think we already clued into this, that the Cult of the Elder Elemental Eye is tied to the Scarlet in what's the name of the Cult of the Elder Elemental Eye is tied to the Scarlet Brotherhood in the Styes. That's not a bad one. So that way we have this cross connection between 2 secret societies. I think that's a good one. So now we're going to put in some Saltmarsh secrets. Manistrad Carperlock's sister, whose name is what? Nymea Copperlocks. I don't have it. I'm making sure I don't have a Nymea already. Secrets. I lost my secrets. Magistrate Copperlock's sister, Nymea Copperlocks, is an agent of the Scarlet Brotherhood. These are things that Zolek probably knows. There's a connection between the Scarlet Brotherhood. Oh! So Dargahar says, World of Greyhawk fact, there is a connection between the Scarlet Brotherhood and the Elder Elemental Eye. Can you tell me more and or send me a link that tells me more of that connection? I just kind of made that up, but it's always kind of fun when things I make up turn out to be true. True. What else? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I need 3 more secrets. I think I want more Saltmarshy secrets. With his departure, with Scaran Wave Chaser's departure, the Scarlet Brotherhood What are you guys doing? Be cool to each other. Cats are running around me, hissing at each other. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. With Scaran Wave Chaser's departure, the Scarlet Brotherhood has lost much of their power in Saltmarsh. They know something has broken them, but they don't know what. All right, so the Scarlet Brotherhood knows, I think... another vampire has come to town. An emissary of Mother Nightshade to make a pact with Zolek. So there's a younger vampire, one of Mother Nightshade's consorts. Who they know of Zolek's return, and they have visited Zolek to say, like, hey, and he may leave. Yeah, it might be fun if this vampire needs a name. Let's reload our name page here. Manter. I like Gloria. I like something Walker. Oak Walker. Go with Oak Walker. But I need a cool first name. Adeline. That's pretty good. Adeline the Oakwalker has come to town, an emissary of Mother Nightshade, to make a truce with Zolek. Leaves behind an agent. Well, something other than an agent. I think that Zolek would be able to easily see through it can be female Oni, right? So how about Contessa? leaves Contessa, a halfling-looking Oni, as an ambassador. Man, if another vampire shows up, someone's going to say, Saltmarsh would be great if it weren't for all the damn vampires. Yeah. Well, this vampire is not going to stay, but it's like, it's one of these sort of, hey, we know you're in town and we know you're nearby. We also know you're really powerful. And by the way, in the Nightwood, we just want to make sure that, there's peace between our two groups here, that we've got things going on down in the Dreadwood. We know you've got things going here. We just want you to know that we are not diving into your territory as long as you don't dive into ours. By the way, we have a friend, Contessa, who's right here, and she's going to be staying around in town. If you ever need anything from us or have any questions for us, you can talk to Contessa. And, I think Zolek would be like, wow, I know that that's not a halfling, but I don't know exactly what it is yet. And Contessa just smiles and says, I'll be around town, shopping and doing things. I'll be in and out of town. She'll be visiting regularly. I think that'd be cool. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I need one more secret and clue. What would be a good secret and clue when the characters return? I don't know what the characters did with the evidence that they had against Ida Oland. I think they, so much other stuff was going crazy. And I think that Anders has probably left his home and is now living with Zolek. Or maybe a couple of Zolek's bodyguards are now there. Yeah, Elven Wizard King says, is your group still dealing with a vampire that was freed? Yes, Zolek is that vampire. And Zolek is now, a big part of the town. One of his, and he has multiple, I think he's got 3 people on the council that are under his sway. So he can kind of steer the council any direction he wants to go. Scarlet Brotherhood worshippers of Tharzadun are known as the Black Brotherhood. Really? So there's a Black Brotherhood and a Scarlet Brotherhood. It's conflicting. I need one more secret about the town and things that are going on in the town. Oh, well, I'll come to something. So I got my locations, because this is all going to lead into... I forget. Hello, kitty. You're getting bothered by the other kitty. This is Maliki. Hello, Maliki. Oh, Jesus. Oh, no. Oh, God. Scratches. Oh, we kind of like our scratches. We kind of like biting and clawing. Sometimes game prep involves playing with your cat and thinking at the same time. In case you're not aware. It does for me anyway. So I've got piles of NPCs. I just added these new guys, right? But I'm just going to leave them in my secrets because they might not even come up. I really don't know where the game goes, so I just put those in my notes. Monsters, we have Spectres, Bodax, Mummies, Mummy Lord. Treasurer, we have Lightspire, the Sunblade. We have a smoldering gnomish figurine that casts Flame Strike, DC 15 once. They already got their mithril plate armor. And I know that there's... I think the vendor... So the vendor has returned. There is a vendor from... where is it? Not Bormos Riddleheart. Noble of Duraka wants to trade with Skylar. Has magic. Yeah, I think Bormos Riddleheart works for a Noble of Duraka. Works for Ayuz. Who wants to trade. Not just with Skylar, with everybody. He has items to trade. Zolek offers to trade a legendary item for Lightspire. He hates Lightspire. That's for sure. I don't think he even wants to trade with it, but I think he's like, just keep that thing sheathed or we're going to have trouble. Because it's the one weapon that can defeat. Oh, the Scarlet wants to get rid of Zolek and may ally with the characters. So maybe the Scarlet Brotherhood is like, look, you let something way worse in our world. Why don't you work with us? And we'll help you with your vampire problem. You know, you got a lot of vampires. Like, he's probably got 6 to 8 vampires. In fact, another secret is Zolek. He's got more vampires than Saltmarsh that are wandering around. All right. There are strangers lurking around at night. He has a couple of vampires that guard Anders. You know, a couple of mercenaries and a couple of vampires. I approve the possible alliance between the PCs and the Scarlet Brotherhood. I'm so glad you approve. Whether you approve or not, it may still happen. And whether the characters approve. It adds an interesting thing to the characters. Like, well, they switch back and forth on their alliance between the Scarlet Brotherhood and, you know, who's worse? Who's the least worse? It's kind of a fun problem to have. I don't think I really need any more monsters this time. I guess vampire spawn. I don't really need to do much with this because I use all my monsters right out of the monster manual. Oh, yeah. So we need some treasure that we want some treasure. Let's pop over back to D&D Beyond here, and we will go to sources, source books, Dungeon Master's Guide. Very shortly, I think in 2 days' time, I will have the Eberron guide in here. I'm very much looking forward to that. Treasure, types of treasure, random treasure. We're looking at our tables here. Let's see what kind of interesting magic items are available. Gotta find the right. There we go. So table. Which are the interesting ones? So probably a couple of. I'll probably give them a couple of rolls on table B. There's some interesting things there. I don't think. Let's see. Table C, maybe like one roll on table C, and then D is like your super. These are, I guess, your really powerful. But okay, and then probably a couple of rolls on table F for things that they find. I'll probably have them roll on the spot, and maybe one table G item, but it's going to be really expensive. And I forget what the DMG's pricing. Yeah, is. We'll probably use their pricing in here. I'll use the values of these, and they charge low because they all have curses on them. That's the great fun. So yeah, so we're gonna play around downtime wise. I'm gonna have to improvise the downtime. I know one character is going to be trying to make a magical ore. He found some dark. What did he find? Some dark metal that he took, and he wants to use it to make a magical ore, and I think he'll be able to do so. Whoops. So yeah, so I think we'll go with that. And maybe some of the crafting, some of the crafting stuff from Xanathar's guide. I think I got to bring my Xanathar's guide with me today. So yeah, so then we're all set there. Yeah, so it'll be a fun game. I think I've got all the notes I need. I think we are all set, and we still have some time left together. So what shall we talk about? What else has been going on in the world of D&D these days? Well, Eberron is going to be really fun. So I have some ideas stewing around in my head. So one of the things, I don't know if my Sunday group will be doing Eberron, but my Wednesday group is most likely. Evil John says, any interest in the Morty box set? Not really. I don't know anything about that whole IP. I don't know anything about Rick and Morty. I've never seen the show, so I don't really have any opinions. But I'm always, it's interesting to see D&D branch out. I don't know if I guess it's probably a bigger deal than the Stranger Things box set, but probably not as big a deal as the Essentials box set. So it's kind of interesting that they're putting all this stuff out, and that's great. Whatever brings people into D&D, I'm perfectly happy with. But in Eberron, so I don't know. I might talk to I don't know what I'm going to do for my Sunday group. One of my groups, I'm going to run an Eberron campaign. And the campaign I'm thinking about running around in Eberron is I'd like to use whatever the adventure is that's in the actual book, because I like to play that. But I'd also like to... I'm going to homebrew it. And I think what I want to do is hunt down the weapon that caused the end of the last war. And, the one that made the Mournland. Find the weapon, and that you're not the only one that's doing it. And I think I want to do a good mix of James Bondy sort of stuff and Maltese Falcon and old, like Notorious, like old Hitchcock spy movie kind of stuff with Raiders of the Lost Ark. That, there's all of these different groups that are kind of running in, looking for this thing. And I want to leave it open to the characters about which faction they choose to begin with. So, everybody's kind of heading that way. I definitely want to throw in some good Dark Tower, Stephen King Dark Tower stuff, like Blaine the Mono, these, sentient, suicidal hell trains roaring across the desert of the Mournlands, like the last train of the Mournlands. These old ruins of old cities in the Mournlands would be really cool. I'd love to see that. So I want to kind of build from that. And I think that there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do in a homebrew adventure there. So I think I'm definitely gonna do that. I don't know if I'm gonna run Avernus or not. I'll talk to my groups about it. If I do, I'm probably gonna modify it a fair bit. There's a lot of good adventures out there in which you start off at Elturel and get to see Elturel fall into hell. And I can't imagine why they didn't do that in the main book. So I'll definitely do that. Dragon here says, I'm not sure about an Eberron campaign. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, there are going to be a lot of Eberron campaigns out there, but it's not for everybody. I dig it. I'm a big Eberron fan, and I'm happy to take a step. I think, this is the first campaign book that isn't Forgotten Realms. Right? So it's been 5 years of D&D before we had our first campaign book for another realm. That's pretty crazy. I mean, yeah, I know Curse of Strahd, but Curse of Strahd was an adventure, not really a campaign book. Oh yeah, Ravnica. Okay, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. But Ravenloft wasn't a source book. Ravenloft was an adventure. But you're right about Ravnica. Yeah, so Ravnica was the first campaign book, which is interesting. Yeah, because and you're like, look at it, it's like, well, why are they doing a Ravnica? And, boy, I'm I guess I'm old and stodgy, but I sure wish that had been Sigil, and I guess you could steal a lot of it and make it into Sigil, and you could reskin it. It was a fine book. It was a good book on its own, but man, I want Planescape so bad. Of course, we have Planescape. I can just go use old Planescape stuff, so it's fine. So, yeah, Shadzar says, I guess there's talk about the Wendy's D&D game, but that wasn't Wizards. Wizards didn't have any, that was not sponsored by Wizards of the Coast at all. The other stuff was sponsored by Wizards of the Coast. And I don't know anybody that's actually playing the Wendy's one. And then there's all kinds of backlash about Wendy's, and there was the whole Critical Role thing and all that. I don't know. I thought that's all kind of water under the bridge at this point. So another interesting thing that occurred to me, and I'm always thinking about, like, well, where's D&D headed? And I my goal with these videos and my goal with everything I write and all the books I publish and everything like that is to help people get into D&D and how important that is. D&D is so awesome, right? As a way to bring people together, bring friends and family together, and sharing a creative activity. So important. And there's actually a good bit of research on how important it is health-wise, that being with friends and family is the biggest indicator of one's health, higher than, I'm totally screwing this up, but It's essentially like when you look at people who are isolated or are by themselves, that is worse. Being isolated by yourself is worse than smoking when it comes to your health. So, getting together with people to play D&D is a really important thing. And what else? So, yeah, once the Eberron book is out and Morty is out, the Rick and Morty book is out, we don't know about any further product. They haven't announced anything. So, and I think that's cool. But yeah, I think it'll be neat. Evil John says, "Is something as in notice Chris Perkins is stepping back." I haven't. He's been active on Twitter, and he doesn't do the big games anymore, and Dice Camera Action stepped back, but he just ran a game at Gamehole Con, and is on YouTube. That was on YouTube. My wife and I were watching it. It's kind of a gonzo game, but it's fun. And he wrote the adventure in the Essentials kit, so he's still active in production. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and he said he was working on something that if you liked Eberron, you'll love this, and that got everybody's attention. So yeah, we'll see. What else? Yeah, so it's interesting. It's interesting to see where it goes, and we still are in a period where, the growth of D&D is really, really high and continuing to grow, and it'd be interesting on how to bring more people into it. I've got a interview, I think in 2 days, with Keith Amon, who wrote the book The Monster Knows What They're Doing, and that's a good example of like a book that can help new DMs understand how monster tactics work. It also has an interesting philosophy on how to pay attention to monsters and tactics and things like that. So I think he and I are going to have a really interesting conversation about that. Yeah, so it's just pretty wild. It's pretty wild to see where this whole thing is going. I know that the whole Unearthed Arcana that came out with all of those new abilities, that's going to be a big deal, and we'll see how that all comes into play. And the other one that I'm really excited about, and I want to spend a lot more time figuring out, is one-on-one play. I talked about it last week, and I'm still pondering it now, and I think it's something I'd like to really dig into, because to me the idea of one player and one DM really can make this game a lot more flexible in people's lives. It can make it a lot easier for people to play. And if we have good systems for it and understanding of it. I was talking to a guy on Twitter who's got a great YouTube channel. I'm going to pull it up right now. Let's see if I can pull it up without it going off. His name is Bob World Builder. Bob World Builder. If you are unfamiliar with Bob World Builder, you may want to subscribe to his channel. He had a lot of great videos. Oops, I've got all my stats on here. He did a whole bunch of videos about how to run the adventures in the Essentials kit that I had watched. But he also has this video here about this Essentials kit sidekicks and how to level them all the way up to 20 using the UA rules. And I think he's got some really good stuff. And I have a feeling, I'm hoping that I saw some Twitter back and forth between him and JVC Perry. And they're talking about maybe a DM's Guild product where you can have sidekicks that go 1 to 20. I think it'd be great to have a booklet of sidekick characters that can take you from 1 to 20. But yeah, great channel here, Bob World Builder. Worth checking out. And I think that idea of like, how do you scale up sidekicks, and then how do you tune adventures so that you could play them with a single character and a sidekick? Like, and I talked about it last week, so I'm not going to go over it again. But the idea of how do I play a player and a sidekick and get all the way through Tyranny of Dragons, would be really neat. Like, how do you take all of Curse of Strahd and run one player through all of Curse of Strahd? How would you do that? And I think you can, and I think it's worth, trying out, and I think it's worth figuring out how to do that, because, a lot of flexibility when it comes to that. And if you could do it for one other player, then obviously it's not too hard to do it for 2 or 3 or 4. And then once you have 4, you're doing it as it was intended to be played. So yeah, I think, and Elvin Wizard King says one-on-one could be really fun. The level of character development is huge potential. Yeah, like when you have one character, it's so much easier to kind of tune everything around that character and make them the center. I think, and the whole scale of the game, is it a goofy game? Is it a sinister game? Is it, dark and mysterious? Is it, heroic? Can all come from that one character and how they approach the world. There's so much more of tuning the lens of the world around the character's view, which I think is really interesting, and I'd love to figure that out. Shadzar says they made our parties. You would have to rewrite the whole thing for just one player. I don't think you'd have to rewrite the whole thing. I disagree. I think that you can tune a lot of an adventure, and if a DM, my goal, and I'm working on articles that are going to tie into this. I would love to give DMs some guidelines that you can keep in your head that let you tune an adventure on the fly, so that you can take an adventure like Curse of Strahd and run it and not have to rewrite it in order to fit one character. And I think it can be done. I don't think we need to rewrite whole adventures. I think there's just some core philosophical and design changes that we DMs can keep in our head to run them and get them to work. I bet you that there's more to it. So we've hit an hour. It is 11 o'clock. I have to go get my game ready and get over to the shop. I want to thank everybody for coming. I want to thank all of the folks in chat for a wonderful discussion today. And I will see you guys all in a week when we will be back to Saltmarsh and see what has gone on in the town and begin our new dive into the final enemy. So thank you all for coming. Go out there and play some D&D.